Well, finally got round to making a little video, and it's drizzling outside, but that's okay. It's just a bit of a soft rain. That's what they say here in Ireland, it's a soft rain. That means it's not a big hard rain, a big heavy rain. You don't really have to put your coat on if you're just outside for a short while. I've been very busy today, been very busy all day, and it's involved a little bit of caring. So I've had to do a little bit of caring, which is quite nice really. Well, it's nice once it's done and you can just reflect back and put your feet up and, you know, just enjoy the evening, which is what I'm going to do. And as you can see, the lights are on in the cottage. The nights are drawing in very fast now. But the colours are heightening. I mean, look at the colours of those trees. Aren't they amazing? Sorry, there's a little bit of rain on the lens now. There's Sammy Bear following. And there's a lovely smell of turf smoke on the air. Turf, it's I suppose it's peat. You'd call it peat. So I'm burning peat in my stove at the moment. Just little bits. It's unusual to come onto the land, you know, when there's this sort of fading light. And it's a lovely time of the evening as well. It's very calm. A few birds around. There we go, right on cue. Ah, look, there's Sammy Bear in the bushes, hiding on Jack. Oh, I'm just after realising, because the light is so dim at the moment, but look at this. That big shaggy and cap mushroom, and the one there just in front of Sammy. Some nice little ones down there. I shall come out in the morning and see if I can harvest some. It's a very interesting subject, caring, because for quite a lot of my life I stayed at home raising children and making sure that the home was functioning 100% as a home for my husband. And yet that's not at all valued by the state or by the hierarchy or by the institutions of work or by corporations or indeed society. It's not valued at all. So the actual act of caring doesn't seem to have any value. I think that says a lot about society and about the kind of society that we have, if not created, then allowed to be created. There are lots of people who are tied to the home in terms of their commitment to caring. Children who need to be looked after. Old people, like parents, infirm parents. Children who are disabled in one way or another. Or shall we say, not able-bodied. And when you think of it, the people who care, the people who give up their time, sometimes their entire lives to care, save the governments of this world and the corporations of this world and the society of this world. Absolutely unfathomable amounts of money and wealth. But their wealth, the wealth of what they do, again, just holds no value. I've always found that to be upsetting. Well, upsetting at times, you know, when I've seen women, especially women, in these roles that are not recognised or valued. Mostly I get quite cross about it, because I know if I was in government, one of the first things that would be done would be to have a value placed upon caring. It's not a lot to ask, is it? Oh, look, I do need to get into this tunnel and do a little bit of tidying up. There's pernicious weeds that have to be burned. There's straw that needs to be organised. There are plants that have seen their best and trees that need a little bit of pruning, and the grapevine up the end, well, if I walked anywhere near it, I think it would grab me and that would be the last I'd be seen of because it's become a bit like a triffid. I don't know if any of you remember or have heard of the Day of the Triffids. that was such a scary film. I remember as a child watching it and being absolutely petrified. These walking plants. And I think in the end, what defeated the Triffids was plain and simple. It was seawater, salt water, sort of melted them. Yes, that does remind me. That reminds me. Yesterday, I was talking about GM seed and all the stuff related to it. Well, of course, one of the biggest issues related to GM seed is herbicide and pesticide. Look at this gorgeous sweet chestnut tree. So, of course, we're always told that they're safe, aren't we? We're always told the same old blather, as my grandmother used to say. If somebody was talking nonsense, she'd just say, oh, they're blathering. Well, there's Sammy Bear. I thought there was someone stalking me. Well, in terms of the stupidity of mankind when it comes to using these herbicides and pesticides and, you know, Mother Earth killers, there's a very interesting blog on my website, and I'm going to post a link to it underneath this video. And I'm trying to think of the title of it. I think it's called something like anyway, something to do with the 145,000 cats. If you want to read a true story of man's stupidity and final acknowledgement of the power of nature as opposed to the power of man, read this quite interesting and actually quite funny blog. Now, I'm just wandering around here, just allowing you to see the colours at this dusk. It's a time of dusk. I went out for a walk last night before bed. It was about 9 o'clock. It was pitch black. Absolutely. There wasn't a light anywhere, and of course I live on a country lane, so there's no street lights. So when I say it was dark, it was dark. But I had my torch with me. I just wanted to take Jack for a bit of a walk because he hadn't been out much, you know. And do you know, it was lovely. It was lovely. I so enjoyed it. So I think I'll do the same thing now this evening before bed, because Jack certainly slept well and so did I. Mind you, I'm not surprised that Jack is sleeping well, because he's got an extra cushion in on top of his cushions. Something freaked Sammy Bear out in the stone circle. Now, Sammy Bear, what has spooked you? Oh, he says, I'm not sure. Something spooked you, hasn't it? His friend Jack is coming back. I think he feels safe when Jack's around. Yes, and I think as I was walking down the road last night with Jack, just got down to the bend on the road and Jack suddenly bolted. He thundered off down the road. So I think there may have been a fox or a badger just at that point. Sammy Bearkin, come on. Are you seeing something? Some years ago, you know, because the cottage next door is rented out all the time. Well, there was a lovely American couple staying there. They stayed there for about a year and a half, called Brendan and Sheila. Oh, they were so much fun. They were quite outrageous too, because they'd say things, you know, that people in Ireland just wouldn't dare say. They were very outrageous. But wonderful people. I adored them. Really adored them. And Sheila, beautiful, beautiful looking woman. Now Sheila would have been in her late 50s, I think, at that point, but she had hair down to her waist and she just was so, oh, I don't know, she looked as though she'd stepped out of one of those old style fairy books, you know, that she was a fairy princess or something. There was a touch of the fae about her, as my gran would say. A touch of the fae. The fae, of course, are the fairy folk. And both Brendan and Sheila had Irish roots. And Sheila said to me one day, she said, you know, Sammy Bear is a fairy horse. I think it was Sammy she was talking about. It may have been the previous cat to Sammy, but she reckoned that there was this sort of relationship between cats and the she or the fairy folk. And you know, watching Sammy Bear now, and I watch him a lot, obviously, he's my cat and I love him, and he can be very entertaining at times, but I often see him just acting strangely. He's obviously seeing things that I don't see. And I say I don't see. It's not that we can't see, it's that we don't see. Because to open our eyes fully and see things may frighten us. We seem to have like an inbuilt fear, and that keeps us living in a sort of a normal perception. I probably haven't put that very well, but I think you understand what I mean. It's just run up the tree. Now he's run up the tree, and it's not chasing a bird or anything, because the bird's right at the very top of the tree. But just he gets these little freaky moments. Come on, Sammy. There's a little robin up at the top of the oak tree. I can't see it, just hear it. Just walk around this way, because I want to show you something, and it's quite unusual, but this is the third harvest from the rhubarb. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? The third harvest. Well, I think on that note, I shall make my way in. And I bid you all a good evening. Blessings.